And joining us now is a Michigan-based political strategist and independent journalist who also hosts a very good podcast, James David Dixon. Welcome to Victory News.
Tim, thank you for having me.
All right, James, now we just had that story about that wonderful moment of Americans remembering a military man who had no family left. Do you think we have forgotten the purpose and meaning of Memorial Day in our culture, James?
Well, I think when you look at the marketing, right, it's so much about having that Monday off. It's about hot dogs and barbecues. And I think we also have to remember why there are hot dogs, why there are barbecues, and why we're able to do this. We haven't known a true wartime Memorial Day in quite some time, but there are people who gave their lives, who gave everything they had to fight for this country. There are people who sacrificed so much, whether they wanted to or not, to fight for this country, and their lives were never the same afterward. So we always have to remember the reason for the season.
Yeah. You know, former Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan suspended his independent run for governor in Michigan. Now, Democrat Jocelyn Benson and Republican John James are vying for the role to replace Gretchen Whitmer. Does a conservative like James have a shot at leading the state there?
Absolutely. Tim, when you look at Michigan history, since you have to go back to the 1960s to find a time when a governor replaced another governor of the same party in Michigan. And back then, that was because George Romney left to be HUD secretary under Nixon, and his lieutenant rose up. Ever since then, we've been trading the governor's office back and forth, and the historical trend says Republicans are due. I also think with Jocelyn Benson kind of running in the mold of Gretchen Whitmer, and Whitmer not being a successful governor, I think there's a little bit of girl boss fatigue in Michigan, and we always like to try something different after that 8-year run.
Okay, now you're doing a tour across your home state called Make Politics Local Again. Now, one of your main points is if you want to win, don't call it a midterm. Tell us why.
Absolutely. So we've had 20 of these so-called midterms since 1946, and the president's party, Republicans, in this case, have lost 18 of those. And so with there being a Republican president in office, and I'm a Republican and speaking to them, to call it a midterm is to speak the language of losing. But also in particular with Republican voters, they have an unfortunate trend of only showing up once every 4 years to vote. There's a hyper focus on the presidency, which is how millage votes get passed in the meantime that they're not partaking in, and you wind up with bad governors. So if we can get involved in the political calendar year round and cycle round, the country will reflect our values, not the other people's values.
Well, that's a really good point. Now, over the last decade, immigrants provided nearly 60% of your home state of Michigan's population growth. Is this the path for Michigan to grow in its population and economy, James?
There seems to be a belief that it is the only path, which is worrisome because Michigan, we all know, is a shrinking state, or at very best, it's stagnating. And yet our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, who's running for governor, keeps finding hundreds of thousands of people to add to the voter rolls. You don't have to strain very hard to consider who those might be. And so Michigan, we have to make it viable for other Americans to move to, not just internationals whose lodgings are then paid for.
Yeah, I love your shirt, by the way. It says, Make Politics Local Again. I think that's the key here in America, don't you, real quickly?
I do. I think we have to get back to home. Yeah. Home base, water your own grass. Be a steward of what God gave you.
Amen. Now, to learn more about James Dixon, check out his podcast at jamesdixonpodcast.com. James, thanks so much for joining us here on this Memorial Day.
Tim, thank you for having me.